Alright guys, let's talk Angular. So this video is going to be super important for the people who are working on Angular, who are Angular developer, or they are just curious about knowing the Angular, who know like basic of Angular, who want to take their knowledge to advance, or who doesn't even know anything about Angular. So this video is going to be full of top-notch technical secrets that I'm going to share with you guys because I'm a senior Angular developer. I've been working on Angular since a while. My motivation, my inspiration to make this video is I want to share the things which actually happens in the real world and not just, some dummy example. This has been my agenda since day one. I want to share the knowledge in a way so that one will become capable enough to build the large scale applications which solves the complex problems. Okay, so what is the topic of today's video? So the topic of today's video is ideal best practices that you follow for your Angular project. So I have one project which is developed in Angular and I want to show you like how beautifully I wrote a code there. I follow all the clean code guidelines. I have followed all the standards. I have used all the latest feature that Angular has to offer, and I actually basically ensure that this application can grow to any scale. It is very easy to maintain, it is scalable, it is extendable, multiple people can work on it, it is very contribution friendly. And how it reached to that state? Because I followed the a base guideline that very proficient and the senior engineer knows about. Okay, and now why I'm making this video, another reason is because you will not find this kind of a content anywhere on the YouTube, because most of the videos that you see from this content creator is they show you a very dummy basic simple example which will probably have some data. They will fetch some data through some APIs, or will use some placeholder dummy APIs and will show how okay data is coming, you can see it on the front end and this is how we did. And that's all, nothing beyond that. Like max they can take it to some code operation tutorial where they will show that how we are able to manipulate the data, how we can insert new data. That's it. Do you think that the big organizations or the big application like Netflix, Twitch, Gmail, Gmeet, they will be following like the same coding practices or the same things that these YouTubers show in their videos? And the answer is straightforward, definitely not. It cannot happen if you have to grow your application to a big scale or you're trying to build something very complex. You need to have a solid coding principles and guidelines, because without the stronger foundation you cannot build the miraculous things on top of it. And this analogy applies to all the fields of engineering in this world actually. So I have one Angular application that I have developed in Angular 18, and I try to use all the latest features of the Angular, and I have followed really good coding guidelines and the practices, and I'm going to tell you those in this video. And don't think that like I'm just going to tell you that these are the coding guidelines, these are the best practices that you follow because people say they are good and you follow. Bullshit. I don't want to explain the things in this way. Okay, I really don't like this approach. I want to tell you, I want to like deliver these things to you, that why we call them as a best practices, why we do them in this way, why I do write a code in this way and not in other way. And if I don't follow them, then what are the worst things that are going to happen with your code base, with your application, or the negative effects that you are going to see as a developer. So I want to explain things in this way. Okay, not just like these are the good practices, best practice you follow, and they said that this is the modularity structure things and blah blah blah. But this is not how I want to go. I want to tell the benefits of the things, and I also want to tell you the consequences of those if you don't follow it. So what you see in front of you is the application that I want to show a code base to you. First of all, I'm going to show you the application, how it works, what it does, how it looks, so that you will have idea, and then I'll go to the technical details. So this is a simple employee document manager, which is basically a data set of the employees, and you can basically see the employer related information here in this table. What I got is the full name, salary, email address, their position, date, and actions. So what you can do through this application, like you can create the new employees. Let's say I added DNY there and I put the salary of something there and the just some mail ID over there, this, and I can save that, and it will instantly get saved there. And I can then search on basis of the newly added things and I can see it is there. I can go to this newly created employee, I can edit its name, I can edit whatever field I want, and I can then save it again and it instantly reflects. uh, I can delete it if I want, and it would get immediately deleted. I can also perform a sorting and searching on the basis of this application. And as you can see in the URL, this application is actually hosted on the Netlify, and it is not running on my local host. And I want you to notice this. I have implemented pagination here. Why? Because this is the Tableau data, which can be like anything, any number of rows. We don't know like how many records going to be there, so it doesn't make sense that you load all of them. You load them lazily in the chunks of some sizes. Okay, and now I want you to keep eye on the URL over here when I click this next page, because when I click on the next page, the URL gets changed. So now it is page 2. Previously it was page 1. If I go to page 1 again, then it is page 1. Okay, so the URL is changing whenever I'm changing a page. Now what is the intention behind it? It's not a mistake. So I wanted to have like a page, then /2 or 3 something, so that user can share this URL and they will directly land to a particular page where they know that on this page there is this record present. Or if my user is simply interested in getting certain data on the page number, they can simply achieve through the URL itself. And further, I had to add in more improvement. I can go there and add a search query there in the URL itself. With that, I can like search the user. For example, I'm doing a search here with some search term. I can like put that search term over here in the URL itself and search it. So these are the benefits that you get. Okay, so this is my application, how it looks, how it behaves. Now I want to take you to its repository on the GitHub, and now I'm going to catch the attention of many people now from this moment. So this is the entire repository over here on my GitHub. As you can see, there is a URL. I'll put this in the description as well, so that you can clone it, you can run it, and you can just learn from it. Okay, I'm going to talk about all the things. I'm definitely going to take you to the code base. I'm going to touch upon the code level details, the coding guidelines, the clean practices, the maintainability aspects, the performance aspect. All of those things I'm going to touch. We'll get there in a moment. But since I'm on the GitHub, I just want to showcase you a good example of a GitHub repository template. If you see my project, I have given the about here, like what this application does. Code operation on the data table using AgGrid and the material. I'm using AgGrid and the Angular material. This is the live demo link which I was showing you, hosted on the Netlify. Then I have the tags. GitHub tags is a feature that many doesn't know. You can actually put a tags of the technology or the framework there, so that it becomes easy for other people to discover your repository. So the readme that you see is actually what I have constructed, what I have designed. I have not copied it from anywhere. This is my personal creation that I have came up with. This is outcome of the wise and the logical thinking of my brain. So what I got here, I have a table of content about the project, built with, getting started, prerequisite, installation, live demo. That's it. So this is the way how I like to structure the readme file. Actually is very intuitive and tells you everything about project from basics to advanced. So about the project, what is the project? A document management web app built with Angular 18, Angular material, AgGrid featuring the CRUD operation, blah blah blah, uses the standalone component and the reactive forms. Bit technical. If you see, I started with like a simple language, a document management web app built with Angular 18, and then I'm talking about the technical nuances like the standalone components, reactive forms. I want to give a feeling to the person who is saying that, yeah, I know the things, I know the technical building blocks because I developed it and this is what I have used it. Then I'm using these nice logos. What libraries I'm using? RHS, material, AgGrid, PNPM for my project management. Now many people don't include this, but I think uh, you should include like which package manager you are using. Some uses yarn, some uses PNPM, and I don't know if you are using NPM still in 2025. Then you it is almost similar to me, like you're using Windows XP in 2025. So you better should be knowing like what is the state of the NPM and why not to use it now. Getting started, how you do that, what are the prerequisites? This is the Node.js version, TypeScript version, then the detail instruction, how you do that. You clone the repository, you go to this directory, then you do PNPM install or the yarn install, then you do a build command, then the dev mode, how you run it. And then I also included the test cases, unit test cases. That's why I have this nice screenshot over here, and the linting, because when we talk about the coding guidelines, nothing comes first than the clean code, and linters helps there. So for those of you who are not aware of like what is a linter is the tool that helps you to write a clean code. It basically detects the bad code practices at static level, or find out whether you have put some strings, hard coded something, if you are not following the types properly in the TypeScript, if you are using any or unknown, if you have just like defined some method and never used it, if you have defined some object and never used it, those kind of a static time, the compilation time warnings, bad coding practices or bad code smells, it detects that and it tells you these are the wrong things, you better fix them. So the linters are the tools which helps you to find out those. Of course you can extend it and you can enforce the more stricter, you can have your own rules. Then I'm dockerizing application, because when we talk about deploying application, nobody deploys them with the traditional way. The ideal way of deploying is Docker. It's not just ideal way because it's a necessity, because if you have application that you have to deploy anywhere, maybe on premise or the cloud, and then you may have to manage the whole deployment lifecycle process efficiently, you don't have any good alternative than the Docker. So you have to dockerize your application, you have to create the image of it, and that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm saying how you can run the application with a Docker. And with a Docker you get a benefit that you can scale your application, you can run it in the multiple containers, you can shut down the process of the application, you can start the application. So basically the whole infrastructure management and the deployment part of your application becomes way more easier if you have a Dockerized application. This process of managing the infrastructure and the deployment is called as a orchestration. Deploying application on any server, managing its state, whether to turn it off, turn it on, to deploy it on the multiple machine, and managing all other aspects of your application and the infrastructure. Docker helps a lot there. Now there is a section open issue. I want to tell you, in this world there are no applications which are 100% bug free. Okay, you are going to have some minor defects or some warnings or some incompatibility or some minor glitches. Those doesn't have to be like very critical or the serious. If they are critical, there will be CV security vulnerabilities, critical security vulnerabilities, but there are something that doesn't affect your application behavior functionally or the technically, or nothing to be concerned of, nothing to be concerned from the security perspective or the performance perspective or the functionality perspective. You can mention them here, as I'm clearly saying this is a non-breaking, non-functional. Observe console error for modal block area. I was just seeing some errors when I open the dialog of the Angular material, and it had no impact on the functionality, or it had no impact on the entire application. It was not breaking application, or it was not causing any other negative effects. It's just like there is the error coming out of the Angular material, which is actually from the Angular material, not something from my code. So it is better to mention that, because to whomever this will be handed over will be better aware of the situation. So now this is the time where I take you to the code base and will deep dive. At this point I take you through the code, the file, and I'll be talking highly technical here. So viewer discretion is advised if you are a beginner, but don't worry, I know how to explain the things in the beginner friendly manner. And just a reminder, if you like my content and the videos, the stuff I'm doing, then subscribing to my channel is a really great way to show us support. If you have not done that, please do that, guys. It's totally free for you guys, and it just gives me a motivation. I don't get any monetary benefits. My channel is very small scale. My channel is very small actually, but seeing that support and the encouragement and the feedback from you guys, it actually motivates me to do the similar kind of a content. So now, as you can see, I'm in my VS Code and I have this application, and the first thing first, let me install the dependencies, because I don't have the node modules over here, and without dependencies you will see a bunch of errors there in my code base. And if you see my dependencies, I don't have much stuff there. I just have Angular core, and then I have the Angular material, AG grid, RxJS. That's it, nothing else. I'm using like material for the UI widgets and the AG grid for the table, RxJS for the state management. That's it. So please be concise and minimal when it comes to the packages. One more thing, since we are talking about the dependencies, I want you to tell the differentiation here between the dependencies and the dev dependencies. If you see here, I have very less stuff in the dependencies, and then I have a couple of things here in the dev dependencies. Because if you are not aware, dependencies are the libraries which actually gets compiled, and when your output bundle, your final distribution or your final bundle gets generated, those are the libraries which actually ship some part of it code to your final bundle size. So for example, RxJS I'm using when my application runs in the production, then the part of a RxJS library is actually being copied in the JavaScript files that I have on the production. And that is actually necessary because your RxJS, you want to have the state management, and how you can do those stuff without you having the RxJS there. Okay, so dependency libraries are actually part of your final bundle size. They get shipped to your production, so be careful about like what you are shipping to production, because you don't want to bloat up your application. You don't want to increase the bundle size of your application, because the bundle size ultimately decides the performance. And not just that, there are other interactivity metrics which your tool like a Chrome Lighthouse, like the first contentful paint, largest contentful paint, it actually affects that. And in the dev dependency, I have stuff which I need at the development type. For example, linting. Remember I was talking about the linters. So checking the bad code, it's actually a necessity at the compile time. I don't want to do that when my application is running in the production. Jest is the testing library that I'm using, and which also I need at only when the application is being compiled and not when it is running. So I'll start from the package.json. So I have a scripts command over there which I recommend you to do. Like for the test, you can run it through a Jest. Then please have a dev mode enabled there. You can like do a dev, you can do a build, you can do a watch. I have a pnpm log because I'm using a pnpm as a package manager. In the log file, you ensure that all the dependencies follows the same version. I have a setup of the jest ts there. I have tsconfig is for the TypeScript stuff. What are the TypeScript checks that I want to have in my project? I have a docker build sh because I'm using a docker, because I'm building a docker image of my application. And there is a docker file, of course, whenever you have it. So these are the dependencies. I need to add a pm2 and http server, and I will expose a 4000 port, and this will basically compile application, build it, then it would form a docker image, and ultimately I get a docker image that can be run on any orchestration tool like a kubernetes, nomad, whatever your organization or the company using, or whatever infrastructure or the cloud provider you have. Then our favorite file git ignore. In this add the stuff that you are not going to need. So nowadays whenever you use scaffold the Angular application, you get this file automatically, and you get the recommendation from Angular, like these are the files we suggest you that you put in the git ignore. So this is not something that I put there. You will find that it comes out of the box from the Angular. Okay, then going to the main application src. So in the src I have style scs, and if you see I have a bunch of imports there in the style scs. And what I have is the material and the grid themes. These are the two that I want to show here, and which is something that I have customized. For example, mdc button, dialog surface, I wanted to put a border radius of 2 pixels. This is something that I want for my application. This is not something, you know, material provides you out of the box. This is something that I wanted to enforce on my application. Just wanted to extend the default behavior of the material, so I did this way. Now I want to show you the components, and if you see I have organized the components: common, document modal, and document table. So reason why I'm doing this, because your component is actually a smallest building block of your application, and when your application grows it becomes confusing for you, like what exactly this component is doing, what is its purpose. Sometimes you can have multiple components with the same name. This is the point where confusion start. So that's why I think organizing the components in this hierarchy makes way more sense, so that you get to know like what exactly this component is doing, where it would be used. Similarly, I have a confirmation dialog, because confirmation dialog is something, you know, that is present across your entire application. You have to keep it consistent. You don't want to have like on some page I see a confirmation dialog smaller, on some page I see it bigger, on some page I see it white, on some page I see it in the black or some other color. You don't want to have those unexpected behaviors, so it makes 100% sense that you put a confirmation dialog under the common, so that you can use it across your application. Whenever you have to like change its behavior, you will just change at one place, and that would reflect throughout your entire application. So that's a benefit. As I promise, I'm explaining you things in this way, that where I'm explaining you the benefits of following the standards and the practices. App.component HTML over here, as you can see, I have a content wrapper, I have app header, router, outlet. That's it. So it becomes very easy to understand, and the application is very decomposed here. I have app header which is going to be there. I can change it in the future if I want, if I have to. And if I have to change the header, I would just like change it with something else, or If I have to remove the header or if you have to swipe it out with something else, I will just like change this line number 2 here, and that's it. That way my code is more extendable in future. Any developer who is working on it, they have to invest very minimum efforts to like do the changes. Then I have the services. So in Angular you have the services through where you can basically write your business logic or generally you communicate with your data. So I have the methods for communicating with my data: update document, delete document, add document. I highly recommend you like follow this pattern to update the state object, because maintaining a state consistent throughout your application, this has to be done at a central place and not like through any random component, because this is the major problem with the state management. There has to be a single source of truth. It gives you a lot of freedom that you can update the state of object as you want. That means it comes with a lot of risk as well. If you are not doing that rightly, you can have side effects that you would have not imagined of, and you'll end up in like debugging the your code and will not understand like what exactly is happening, from where the state is changing, why the state is changing. That's why I think what I learned, maintaining a center place where from where your state objects are manipulated, they are mutated, makes the code very very predictable in terms of like what exactly is happening. So I'll not stretch this video very much because I want to keep it short and crisp. I also promised that I was going to talk about the Angular latest features, so I just want to show you that I'm not using ng module anywhere, because Angular has started to support the standalone component, and with standalone component you get many benefits that you don't have to rely on any module or import it. So please use the standalone component, as I am highlighting here on line number 18. With standalone component you can just like import the dependency whatever you need in the imports array, and you don't need any ng module file, you don't need any module. And with that you basically reduce your line of code and the files. So this is actually good feature for Angular. If you are developing any application in 2025, you have to go with the standalone. Similar for the routes. If you see, I have the app routes file, and I just have like only one route file there. I just have an array of routes which has a path and then their corresponding redirect to and then component. I don't have like multiple route files, I just have one file, and then this is configured here in the provider. There I'm actually just passing this array, and with this application is intelligent enough that it understand, yeah, there is only one source of truth for the routes and I have to refer that. Previously you can like actually maintain the multiple routes, you can still do that, okay. uh, but having it centrally, I think, not just makes your line of code less, but also saves your time debugging. So it is kind of a, so it's not just kind of a suggestion, but it's more kind of a enforcement, I think it should be, because if that freedom is given to a stupid developer, we can end up having a very messy situation. Types, the last thing I want to talk about. If we are talking about Angular, we are talking about the TypeScript, and we need to have the type system there. So if you see, I have organized the types very well. I'm using like the enums, numeral, not the enums, sorry, these are the string literals simply. So I have the position, which can be developer, manager, designer, QA, and then I have the rest of the structure of the employee position, which is position array. I have the employee document, which consists of these things. Some can be optional, some are absolutely required. With this, actually, you add the type safety to your application, and you don't like see surprises or those nasty errors you see in the console that cannot read the properties of undefined or this property doesn't exist. With the TypeScript, you make it 100% proof that at runtime you will not encounter such error, at least from your code or from your types. Now, I think if you're hearing me properly, then all of these coding guidelines, or most of them, are like design or put there in this way that it actually saves your efforts which will arise in the future if you change something. If there's something arise in the future, if you have to change something, if your application has a new feature, if you are changing previously developed feature, the whole intention of following these guidelines which I'm talking throughout this video is like minimize the efforts that you will have in a future and saves a precious time of people, developers have very less efforts for developing a new things. Then the code readability, the code cleanliness, and the predictable code, that is something which has to do with the developer experience, because you all know that we developer, we are human, and we think with the human brain, and it should not be very complicated or very cryptic that nobody understand that what exactly code is doing. The good code has to take a very less time to make someone understand what exactly it is doing. So follow the abstraction, make your code do only one thing at a time, define the responsibilities, and keep the boundaries between your entities in the code. I think this is very broad topic when it comes to like the coding architecture and the guidelines. I don't want to like touch more detail and go into like much details, talk about the coding principle, solid principle, dry, agni. Some of you might have heard and aware of it. I i refrain myself to make a video on simply theoretical things. I would like to show you things and explain you why in this way and what if you don't do this way. So that's it. I think I talked enough. If you like my video, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel